Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show. Another exciting show and definitely another exciting guest. You know, one thing about the Andre The Beast Crayton Show, what we do here is we empower, we educate, and we bring informative information to people. And today I can really say that's what we're going to do. But we're going to do it through the eyes of a beautiful young lady named Chrystal Moran. Did I get it right?
You did. You did.
Yeah, such a beautiful name. And her story is just as beautiful. Let me tell you where we're going with this. Sit back, get your popcorn, because we can have some fun. Now, just imagine going through different stages of trauma. The loss of your mom through cancer, dealing with cancer of your own, cervical cancer, trying to maintain a family, trying to maintain a career, which in the end of the day, when you look back on it, it only made you stronger. You're talking about becoming a beast. This will make you become a beast. And we're going to address all of these things and a hell of a lot more with this young lady. So let's welcome Chrystal to the show. How you doing, Chrystal?
Hello. It's so nice to meet you. I'm happy to be here.
You know, before we get into such a beautiful story of perseverance and overcoming and triumph, the whole 9 yards, tell the viewers a little bit about who you are.
My name is Chrystal Moran. I am a 41-year-old nurse and mom to 3 beautiful kids. My grandson was just born. My first grandchild was born back in June. So I am now a Lily as well. So I'm just trying to live in the moment, try to be positive, try to be upbeat, and live life out loud. So,
when did life make a change for you? Because in life, we all start out with what I call the Cinderella story. You know, the knight in shining armor. You know, everything is good, and then all of a sudden we have this thing called bittersweet. When did your life start to change a little bit?
In March, I had a health concern, and progressively over the last few years, I feel like I have come into my mother era. I feel like I have slowly kind of transitioned into who my mother was, or a lot of who she was. I hope to be exactly like her someday, but that's kind of when things started to turn for me, when I really became her. And I kind of mimicked her struggle in cancer, and unfortunately, I think genetically it was just in the cards for me, just like her mother, just like her sister. You know, it's a family trait. And I think that's when I realized, hey, you're going to have to really be her now. You're really going to have to toughen up. Your kids need you. Now your grandchild is going to need you. I knew then that we were expecting my little Jasper. And so I said, you know what, you've got to buckle up and take care of this. At one point, I did consider not even treating my cancer because I was terrified of cancer treatment. To be honest with you, you look online, oncology is not my specialty in nursing. And so all I knew was the trauma that she had experienced. And that really intimidated me. It really scared me. And so I had to think long and hard and pray long and hard and research and reach out to people to feel like that was the right thing to do, you know, to go on and treat it.
Let's go back a little bit. You talked about something that was key, and we'll get into this too. Genetic coding.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that's been passed down from generations to generations to generations. I understand that the technology might not have been available at the time before your mom and stuff, but they did. What kind of treatment offers did they offer your mom? Let's start with your mom. What was available for her, and what were some of the things that she had to go through, so the viewers can go understand just how serious this particular thing is?
Okay. She was mom of 3 as well. She was 38 when she found a lump under her arm, just like I did. And she had the biopsy done. And when it came back as cancer, she immediately chose to fight. I saw no doubt in her face whatsoever. But it was hard because she had a young child at home.
Mm-hmm.
And at this time, my little sister would have been about 5 or 6 years old. I was pregnant with my first child, so her first grandchild was on the way. There was a lot of pressure on her to not only survive, but be well,
Right.
so that she could live her life for the moments that were in front of her. She had the biopsy. It came back as cancer, and it had spread to her lymph nodes. Now, at the time, for context, I was not a nurse.
Right.
I was working in mechanic field for the government. I was doing a government contractor position, and she didn't disclose everything. She was very private about her health. So there's a lot that I did not know at the time, but genetic testing was not often covered by insurance at that time. And in fact, that would have been the exception if genetic testing had been covered. So we did not know that. We knew that there was a hereditary component, but we did not know exactly what that meant for the rest of the family. And of course, it wasn't even a thought in our minds to go get tested as girls. I'm the oldest of 3 girls, by the way. So we really didn't know what we were dealing with. So she went through chemotherapy. She had a mastectomy. She had to wear a prosthetic for comfort, for confidence. She lost all of her hair during chemo. And actually, the day that I delivered my first child, she was in the hospital for a chemo appointment later that day. So she helped me labor through childbirth, and then she actually went to a chemotherapy appointment. Later on that same year, she did do some radiation. She had some severe side effects from that as well. I think that the science has come a long way there too.
Right.
But she fought hard, and she lost a lot of weight. She was still working full time. She had a business that she owned. So her and my father were actually in business together. They owned a flooring business just in a small town. And so they were trying to also make ends meet. They had their finances to consider and a family to continue raising. So she just worked through it. And to this day, I don't know how she did it. She did a couple rounds of chemo because it came back. When it came back, the most recent time, or right before she passed, I was pregnant with my second child, my son Tyler, and my mother and father were supposed to come out to where I lived at the time. I lived with my child's father in Arkansas, and they were going to come out from North Carolina to Arkansas to see us for Christmas of that year. I was due January 3rd of 2007, but I actually delivered a few days early. Well, my father called me a few days before I delivered to say, hey, look, I know you're expecting us to come out, but your mom's really not in any good shape. I don't think that she's okay to travel. At the time, her symptoms were very similar to Bell's palsy. She could not speak above a whisper. She had some paralysis in her eye and some drooping on one side of her face, and that was because the cancer had spread. She had, at that time, metastasis to her brain, her liver, her lungs, and her bones. So she was given a year to 18 months to live. And shortly after I delivered, about a month later, when I was cleared to travel, I flew out from Arkansas, like I said, to North Carolina, and I spent 4 solid weeks with her so that she could, be with the grandchildren, and so that I could live with her, in her final moments. We didn't know how much time we had, and she lasted 14 months. She was tough as nails, and she passed in February of 2008 when I was pregnant with my daughter. So she actually never got to meet my daughter, Emily, which was very regrettable, but I think that she sees her today. I really do. So I think that it's come a long way. But
I'm deeply sorry for your loss. I know that had to be very difficult just to know that death will soon happen and not really have a full indication of when it would take place. I had that same incident with my best friend who went into the hospital and had brain cancer, and perfectly healthy bodybuilder, physically fit. And within, I remember like it was yesterday, I remember him asking me, can you give me a double quarter pounder and tell him to put the mustard on it? And the next thing I know, man, less than 2 months, man, he was no longer with us no more. So I understand that kind of feeling, that pain when cancer sets in on people. Let's go back a little bit. We know what it did to you. What was this impact of your sisters in your family having to deal with? Because it sounds like your whole family is very closely knit. what was the impact feeling on them? But more importantly, the impact of your siblings, because we missing the key note here, people. It's genetic coding. It's already in their genes, and they probably don't even know it at this particular point. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so what was it? What kind of information was you and your siblings sharing, watching what your mom was dealing with?
Well, my mother she was the youngest of 4 girls. And so I have 3 amazing aunts who stepped in and filled my mother's shoes during this time. I also have a bonus mom. My dad is remarried to a beautiful soul who checked in on me. Everyone was very helpful during this time. So we all just kind of stuck together. But my Aunt Brenda in Houston had actually gone and had the genetic testing done. And so she was aware of exactly what her results were. So she definitely encouraged me to go to a genetic specialist, which I did. I did both genetic testing on my cancerous tumor and my blood work so that I could figure out my heredity. So that was very 2025. I will tell you, I was very surprised at how much information they could tell me about myself from my genetics. We had to use the same lab as my aunt did. She had all of my cousins tested as well. So the PALB2 genetic mutation is very strong in my family. They had indicated that because of the way the cancers had occurred in my family, that it was likely estrogen driven. And so I was kind of leaning towards that direction already. And then the genetics came back that it was PALB2. We do have the genetic mutation known as PALB2, which is known for breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and prostate cancer mostly.
And it's really crazy that you said that, because when I was competing in teaching nutrition, one of the main things that I was focusing on, this is so funny, this was back in the 90s. I was talking about the genetic link between estrogen and cervical cancer and breast cancer. But what I really found out that was excuse me, that was really crazy was they was telling women to consume wheat products and soy products, knowing that these 2 particular components will elevate their estrogen levels. Now, I was doing a lecture in Ohio, and it was funny because as I was doing this lecture, there was some staff there from the Cleveland Clinic, and they was like, "We've never heard nobody talk about this until now. We want to back your nutrition manual." I had to create a nutrition manual that clearly focused on that. And it's funny that you're now saying that 2025, they're now acknowledging the connection between, but it's really funny because why would the FDA and people tell people, and I always thought that's crazy, why would they give this to you knowing that it's going to intensify? If you already have the genetic marker, you're going to intensify that cancer showing up. And if you don't have that genetic marker, that say, for instance, if you consume these particular products, you have a highly, even more greater chance of having cervical cancer and breast cancer again. What was your thought about it when they told you all this?
Exactly.
From a female standpoint.
I didn't immediately jump to nutrition, though I had gone through a significant weight loss just prior to that intentionally. I had started on what's called the carnivore diet, where I was basically just eating a lot of meat. I was doing a blend of carnivore keto, in which I was able to lose 60 pounds. I feel a lot better about, myself. My energy level improved. My mental clarity actually improved, amongst other things. But I feel like, have you ever seen the amount of zeros at the end of a hospital invoice? I mean, I feel like at some point we have to consider that our diets and the products that we are advertised, the marketed to as consumers, are not exactly healthy, because you become a lifelong, patient. Healthcare is wildly overpriced right now. I can say that as a cancer patient, but I have to believe that that's the only thing that I can come up with. I mean, it's so expensive and it's so ongoing. I mean, now I'm a cancer patient for life, whether I'm in active treatment or in remission. I will always be a cancer patient now. I can't, I can't buy life insurance because of that, so I think that it's a lot to do with your diet, but I think it's widely underreported. We're not as
Explain to
educated
the
as we should
viewers,
be.
Crystal, explain to the viewers what you mean when you say you're cancer for life, whether you're in remission or what. Is that because you carry the genetic code?
Well, I have the genetic traits. I have already produced, these tumors that were in my lymph nodes. So I was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer with pelvic lymph node invasion. So that's in your bloodstream. That's, this is out there now, and you may not be able to kill every cell. And it may come back. So you have a high recurrence rate, or you are scared of a recurrence. You're terrified every time you have an ache and pain.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't know this, but, and I didn't know this as a nurse, that cancer changes your blood chemistry. I ended up with 3 DVT blood clots in my leg that I did not even know about. Those could have broken loose at any point in time. I could have had high blood pressure, been excited about something and threw a blood clot and, had a pulmonary embolism. People don't understand that cancer changes your blood chemistry in that way. So I actually had to have a filter placed under my heart to prevent that from happening, just in case my cancer does come back. But you go into this, you're diagnosed, you fight through the treatment, and then you go into survivorship. Survivorship is under, we don't talk about that enough either, because now you're worried that every ache and pain is this my cancer coming back? Can I plan for a 10-year, I want to buy this house. Am I going to, be able to live in this house long enough to pay it off? You start wondering about like relationships and things like that. It really takes a toll on you.
How do you keep your mental capacity? And I'm gonna throw myself in this mix for a minute. I haven't had cancer, but I did have a stroke from allergic reaction to steroid, hydrocortisone steroid. And I get what you're saying. I know it's not as significant as the cancer, but just that little thing right there had me so scared. Every little thing that I did, I was freaking out on. You know what I mean? So I was already in therapy. It just made my therapy more deeper. But you're on a whole different level. How do you keep that mental state? Because cancer is a whole different beast itself. Once you've been diagnosed, like you said, you got it. It's just, when's it going to come back? How do you keep yourself mentally psyched, knowing that you got to deal with, your family, your grandkids, relationships? How do you keep it all together?
I will tell you what, whenever your health has been questioned, you learn to live. I promised myself that if I made it through treatment, there were some complications along the way that I did not know I would survive. I promised myself that if I could live and be healthy again, that I would not take it for granted. I remember crying after surgery once, and I told the nurse, a week ago, I was just like you. And I promised myself that if I could get back to a point where I could care for people and care for myself and do the things that were important to me, that I would never take it for granted. So here I am.
What were some of the things that you did take for granted? Because I think you just touched on something. A lot of people, and I feel you. My heart's out to you. And thank you so much for taking time to come on and share such a great story. But you're right. A lot of people, we don't take time. Let's call it what it is. We don't take time to really smell the damn roses.
That's true. And you never know how much of it you have.
I tell people this has always been my saying. Don't give me my flowers when I'm dead. Give them to me now.
Exactly.
Give them to me now. I don't want you coming to my funeral. Oh, Andre was this. Tell me now. It takes less than a few seconds to pick up the phone and call and say, how you doing? How was your day? What can I do for you?
Exactly. I like to keep my circle very close now. My circle is only people that I trust. My circle is people that I love fiercely and would protect with my last breath. You learn to really appreciate the people that are in your life that you've been blessed with for the amount of time that you have together. Some people are here for a season and a chapter, and some people show up and they stay with you forever. And I've had so many good friends. I have been fortunate to have an outlet, on social media where I'm able to make funny videos and make people laugh and things like that, just to live. I just truly enjoy being happy. I truly enjoyed the fact that I was given the gift of more time. I didn't know how much of that I would have.
What are some of the things that you did take for granted now that you're looking back as what I call it a life review? What are some of the things that you now laugh about and go, you know what? I should have seen this a long time ago.
I mean, I'm very busy. So I've always kept myself busy, and I didn't realize what that energy level took. I took it for granted that I could go work a 10 or a 12-hour shift and come home and make dinner and clean the house. I took it for granted that I felt well enough to go and do fun things. I took it for granted that I had a career where I could care for people. I was appreciative in some way, but I was not as appreciative as I am now, to be able to go out and educate people and help people heal and things like that. I really did take that for granted. Being able to schedule my own activities, for several weeks there, for almost 2 months, I was at the hospital almost every day. And it's not a terrible place, and they do good things there, but it's not you living your life. You're in an institutional setting for long periods, and just sunshine and water and, making memories just seem like this distant thing. But those are definitely things that I took for granted.
Now that you're looking back on everything that your mom went through, the genetic markers that's still there, the treatments and stuff, what do you wish that you had learned now that may have changed somewhat of the outlook? You can't change the genetic marker, but a lot of things can be, what's the word I want to use here? There could have been better alternatives. Had maybe, what do you look at now and say, wow, I wish I knew this earlier, because maybe we could have did something different with this.
Well, I mean, I think that I was a lot stronger than I knew. I think that strength is a mindset. In a lot of cases, it's not necessarily my physical strength or status, but I think that mental strength comes from inside you. And whenever it's feeling low, I had no idea that I could reach out to people and feel empowered. I've always been a private person in that way. And so I hesitated actually to even share my diagnosis with anyone. Since then, I'm going to try not to cry. My inbox has been full of people who said, your videos made me feel so much better. Your videos helped me be less scared. And I chat offline all the time with other cancer patients and survivors in waiting, because I needed that. I needed that sense of community and belonging, and I really feel like that's where I found it, was with my diagnosis.
What was you afraid of the most? I mean, let's get real. We're not gonna sugarcoat shit here. You know what I mean? This is real life shit that you had to go through. It's real life shit that people go through every day. I had a friend that was lost to it, and believe me, I cried. And I didn't even have it. But just seeing his life falter in front of me in a matter of what seemed days still traumatized me to the day. So it's not just the people that been diagnosed, it's the people that, like you said, was your community that still, let's call it what it is, we still suffer. I still miss my friend every single day and ask myself this question: why him? Why? What did he do? So, like, what was it like for you going through this?
I was
Because you
terrified.
didn't like people knowing your business. You didn't like people knowing your business. So I take it that you kind of traveled small, and very few people knew what you was going through. So what was that? What was it like for you?
I was terrified that I would become a burden. I was scared that I would, become this, medical case of some sort. I didn't want to be a patient. I'm supposed to be on the other side of the stethoscope, so,
Yeah.
but I was living out the family flaw at the same time. And it just felt like, okay, this is the moment where you need to plant your feet, and just take it head on. It's like if someone, I said this to someone, and I hope it makes sense here, but it's like if someone tells you your whole life that someone is going to break into your home and do you harm, but you don't know when.
Right.
When that moment finally comes, there's a piece about just going ahead and planting your feet and taking it on. I was healthy at the time. And so I thought, well, this is my time. This is, but I was terrified. On the inside, I didn't know how to break it to my father, that possibly he lost his wife and now he could lose me too. It was awful. I was so scared that I was going to be a burden, that I was going to be unable to manage myself. And, when you're a nurse and you're used to providing care to people, that's a scary thought. Now I have to rely on somebody else. I rely on me, so that was terrifying.
Chrystal, who was your support group?
My family. Absolutely. I have wonderful family and friends that check on me routinely still.
Who was the first person you shared this information to?
I'm sorry?
Who was the first person that you shared this information with?
My boss at work, actually. She encouraged me to go to the appointment, and I said, well, I'm going to need me during this time, and I don't know that I'm going to have someone to be me during this time to kind of walk me through it. And she said, I will be you. She said, go. Just go. Her name is Melanie.
Mm-hmm.
We are still fabulous friends. She checks on me all the time. She had my best interest at heart, and she picked me up off the floor whenever I needed it. I actually got my diagnosis while I was at work. I read my biopsy results at work, and it didn't feel real. And she said, go home. And I was like, I need to stay at work at least for a couple more hours. And so I worked for a little bit longer, but she's been an absolute rock. My daughter, Emily, has checked on me routinely multiple times a day. My aunts, but I would say that the person that was in closest proximity to me at the time was my boss, Melanie.
Were there signs? And I'm trying to educate especially the women on this episode. Were there signs that you was as markers, as indicators, and if there were, what were they?
Yes, there absolutely were. But at the time, I was also perimenopausal. So sometimes one thing can look like another. Mm-hmm. I will say that women's healthcare, if you have a great gynecologist, hold on to them with both hands, because gynecology can be terrifying as a young woman. Mm-hmm. So there were exams that I decided not to go and have done, because the last time I had that done, it was extremely painful, or that procedure was extremely painful, and it was traumatizing. So for a couple of years, I just skipped my pap smears, and I skipped going to have these things done because of fear. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, if you have any pain with intimacy, get it checked. I thought that was hormonal because of menopause. Turns out it was not. That is a major symptom. Any kind of abnormal bleeding, check it out immediately. A lot of insurances cover almost all of your gynecological exams. There's absolutely no reason not to go, unless you have a provider that you're not great, don't have a great relationship with. And I would say just find another provider, because your health is more important. Don't wait until it's so far gone. I wish that they had been able to catch mine sooner, and they would have caught mine sooner if I had gone to have those exams done.
What are some of the things that women should ask their gynecologist? I have a daughter, and I go to her appointments, when I'm always in, because I'm going to ask questions and stuff. Mm-hmm. What are some of the questions from a female standpoint, mature female that is, that even a young girl, that they need to ask when they go into into their OBGY?
I'm going to differentiate between the older and the younger for just a minute. Okay. I think that the older generation, like myself, we did not get the Gardasil vaccine, and so HPV is very prevalent in our population. Specifically, the form of HPV that I was diagnosed with was 16, which is the worst one. Gardasil vaccine actually guards against, I believe, 9 of the variations of that virus. And so the younger generation, most of these folks have received this vaccine series. And so I think a lot of us were just we're transitioning into care because we didn't have that vaccine available before we all became sexually active. So I think that that's probably the biggest differentiator there, asking about that. Whenever I spoke to my surgeon, I aired out my concerns. Say what you need to say. That's my biggest advice. I'm both a healthcare provider and a patient, and I strongly encourage you to say what you need to say. You can find a nice way to say it, but my biggest concern was pain. I didn't want to go through the pain of an awake biopsy again. I had had what was called a LEAP procedure, which was painful for me. And it could be different for everybody. I'm not saying it's always painful. I had had several of those, and I just didn't want to do that again. So my physician, who was female, she was actually pregnant at the time. I believe now she's had her baby. But she heard me and she said, let's go into the OR. I'll take you into the OR and we'll do a biopsy. We'll just put you to sleep. Find someone that's willing to work with you. I know that they're the experts and what have you, but there's a way to get things done where it maximizes your comfort and minimizes your distress. So definitely look into a provider that will help you with that.
And it's funny you said that, because when I go to have procedures done and I feel like I'm uncomfortable with something, I'm going to say, hey, what are my options here to make this as less painful as possible? Can you put me under? Can you sedate me? And you know what? You're right. A lot of doctors, if they're good, they will work with you. I think a lot of people don't speak up because I think something about a white jacket and somebody saying doctor kind of intimidates people. You know what I'm saying?
It does. And they're very busy people. And so you're trying to, I know at least for me, I'm trying not to hold them up or be a problem or what have you, but ask. Have the conversation. They are with you for the time that they're standing in front of you. And whenever you have a concern that you forgot about, call the office. Have a good relationship with their nurses. The nurses at my gynecology office saved my life. I was having a blood clot and did not know. It did not immediately dawn on me. And one of the providers called me and said, hey, you need to go to the emergency room right now. And lo and behold, if I had not, I would not be sitting here.
Wow.
So yeah, she was a saving grace. So definitely work with your nurses as well.
You definitely have had some things going on and now you're bouncing back. But what I like the most about the next part of your journey, because you got so many here, and I'm proud to be a part of that journey as well, and the things that you're doing for people, but you're basically making a stand against nursing homes and the care and dealing with the elderly. What brought that on?
I have worked in long-term care since 2011.
Wow.
And I have been blessed with great facilities that treat their residents like family, and family members that come in love the staff. And then after COVID, we shifted in that industry specifically. I can't speak to acute care necessarily, but for long-term care, we went from a thriving mindset before COVID to a survival mindset after COVID. Are you breathing? Right. Do you look like you have signs of COVID? Okay, we're good. Keep it moving. And so that's not it. These are the people, this generation that's in the nursing home right now are the people that raised our parents. These are the people that have served our country. These people are a deserving population of quality care. And the system is just terribly broken. I recently found out that a state not far from me has postponed staff ratio reviews. So they won't even talk about staffing ratios for care providers for another 10 years. And that makes me physically ill. We have to do better.
Shed a little light on that for the viewers. Why does that make you physically, and what's the impact of that number not being disclosed or even addressed?
So basically the way that the governing body over nursing homes right now is the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid. And each health department is what we refer to as a state agency will come in and review you annually as a nursing home. They'll cite any kind of deficiencies and things like that. And so people think because they're so highly regulated that it's really highly enforced. And that's just not the case. We have people that don't get showers. We have people that, I may have 30-something patients. If I work night shift, I'll have the entire building to myself. How can I provide adequate care as a nurse if I went to every room and spent the amount of time that I was supposed to? I would be there for, 24 solid hours. There's no way to get to the care that we need to provide with the staffing standards the way that they are. So I have voiced a concern to my audience, at least, that I think that staffing ratios should be based on acuity. I think that how sick you are matters. You can't say that, 12 totally dependent people on you is going to take the same amount of time to care for, make rounds on, give meds to, monitor even, as you know, for people who walk and talk just like you and I do. So staffing based on acuity is what matters. We don't care what the number is, because the people are what matter. And if these people are high acuity, need a lot of assistance from us, then we need more providers. And it's just not regulated that way.
It's funny that you said that, because it was funny how the universe worked. I used to work in a nursing home. I was an activities director. And
oh, wow.
I remember going into work one. You know how I got the job? It was so funny. This is how I got the job. The director said, if you can make this patient talk to you, you got the job. You work in a nursing home. Some people just, they're elderly and they just get in their ways, right? So I'm thinking, okay, well, this got to be some type of joke, right? This guy never really spoke to nobody. And he started talking to me, and I get the job. He was like, wow, what did you do? But I'm going to get to this point. This was a turning point for me. That was one, because I realized a lot of them didn't get their caretakers just put them in there and they dropped them off. I literally watched how many people came to visit the people that was in there. You know, the staff, it might be, the patients, it might be 100 patients in there, and then they have their visitation day. I would sit there and know on visitation day who would come. That's part of my job. Who's interacting with these people. And I would go and talk to them and be like, okay, is there a reason why you're not getting any visits? Are you close to your family? This was something I felt like that the director and the people there and the nurses who deal with them on a more personal basis should have known. You know what I'm saying? So let me move forward with this. I go in late one night to do to get my activities for the next day. When I'm busy, when I'm not doing nothing, I just go to work. That's all I do. And this lady was sitting up looking out her window. It's about maybe 10 o'clock that night, or whatever time the late shift comes on. And the lady had been sitting in her feces. And the call light was on at the desk. And they were just sitting there. And I went off. I was like, do you not see that light going off? And this lady is in her room crying. So I get what
nothing burns me up more.
Yeah. I left the following week because I couldn't take it. And that was like, I was like, I don't think anybody should be put in those positions. I'm not saying nursing homes and assisted livings aren't bad. They're bad when you put your parents there and you don't check on your parents or the people that you put in there. Because I noticed when people that were getting visits, they was catering to them like crazy. But the ones that had what I call inactive communication with outside, it was a burden. Because you know why? They had nobody to doing what you're doing. They had nobody to advocate for what was really going on behind the scenes.
Right. Exactly. And the other side of that is, just like you said, staff are leaving. Staff are leaving the bedside because they're emotionally exhausted. They are physically just beat up. They're just done. And it's not because of the patients. The patients are the reasons that we stay. Because we know that, us leaving only adds to the problem, but it almost feels as if the corporations just don't hear us. We have these monster corporations that own these facilities, and they're interested in a bottom line, not necessarily a human outcome. And so I'm advocating for these people who have no voice. I'll tell you a story.
Go ahead.
I worked as a receptionist in a nursing home years ago, and this was before I became a nurse. And we had this gentleman who had some psych diagnoses. I mean, he wasn't able to communicate very effectively. He passed away one day. He just, went to sleep and never woke up and had to be cremated. I went to the links of ancestry.com looking for family, anybody. And I found out that this gentleman had been institutionalized since he was 8 years old.
Wow. So he had nobody. My
heart broke. I picked up his cremains and we had a memorial service for him. But just knowing that he had been alone all of that time, it broke my heart. I still think of that man.
And you know what? I found I've met some amazing people while working there. There was a guy that was in there, I never forget it. He had a double room. You know how they do double rooms, so he had a double room, him and his wife, but he had lost his wife. but he kept a double room. And he had this one particular sculpture that was in his living room. And every time I would go in there to get his exercise, I said, man, that looks like the Baseball Hall of Fame trophy. His father, it was, oh my God, I'm getting emotional. His father was one of the top 5 baseball players in the world and was there with, what's his name? Babe Ruth and all the other guys. And he wanted to tell that story so bad. He's like, you can take that trophy. I said, man, I'm not taking that trophy. But just, what was really touching with those people, those individuals that was in the nursing homes, is that they just really wanted to talk. Mm-hmm. And I get what you're saying. My friend Christy, she's in the nursing thing. And I see the amount of hours that she puts in. And I asked her all the time, I was like, why do you work so many hours? And she said, it's not the money. She said, Dre, we don't have the staff. Nobody wants, we get exhausted. We get exhausted. I know firsthand how many shifts she's pulling. She says, I probably have X amount of patients that I have to see. And she said, that's not even including the people that call off.
Yep. Exactly. I mean, when you work short, you work extra hard. And, the nursing home does not care. They will still call you in on your day off. They will still guilt trip you, to come in and be the Band-Aid. I call it being the Band-Aid because of my empathy. And, getting back to your point about this population, these people, imagine going into a hospital because you have an urgent problem. Let's say you had a fall or you've had some kind of injury, and you go in and they say, well, Chrystal, you need a knee replacement. And so you say, okay, well, I can't take care of myself after that. I'm going to need someone to help me. So I need to go into a nursing home. I remember as a cancer patient, all I wanted to talk about was my life. Because I didn't want to see what was in front of me. I wanted to talk about who I really am. And that's what these people want. They want to be able to communicate like, hey, I'm not A-bed in room 426. I'm Mr. So-and-so, and I lived a full life, and I had all of these experiences. And I will tell you from my experience as a healthcare provider, I have learned a ton from my patients. These people they adopt you right into the family, just like you said. They just want to shower you with love and tell you funny stories, and people would give me everything under the sun if I had allowed it. They just wanted to be kind, and I think that's also a generational thing. The extra kindness. So and it's a hard job, and we all wear out. But we all have to get back.
You got to have a strong personality, because you get attached. And I remember the day that I got ready to walk away, those people cried. And I lost it. I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Because I couldn't stand. I knew I was young at the time, but I knew the directors weren't going to do nothing. I'm expendable. Get him out of here. We'll bring the next person in. It's like a constant merry-go-round. But I'm thinking to myself, how can you do people like that? A lot of them would just come to my office. They would do exactly what you said. Sit down, get coffee, and just tell me about their lives. And they'd be smiling like crazy. They knew that their time was coming, so they don't want to hear that. They just want to, just like you said, share their empathy. How is your mission being received so far? Because you're going to have corporate that says, get her off of TikTok. You're going to have people that say you're messing with our pockets. How are you being perceived right now with this quest?
Well, I've had tremendous support from management all the way down to, every single employee under those managers. And I think it's because they know that it's a broken system. Corporations haven't come for me just yet, though I've been asked to get into politics and to help maybe change some regulations. And so I'm working on some things with that, because I think that's where it starts. I think that you can throw a whole list of rules at somebody, but if you don't enforce it, then that's, then there's no point. But I'm actively working on changing regulations to be able to advocate for these people. We are all exhausted after COVID, and I'll refer to my nursing career for the rest of my life as before and after COVID, because that was the biggest mind shift. You know, we went from thriving and let's support these people and give them things, preferences even.
Yeah.
You don't realize how much of your preference goes away in an institutional setting. What time do you normally take a shower? Okay, well, we don't have anybody to provide that shower at that time.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to take a shower when we tell you you can. You know, just things like that. The loss of independence is also a big factor. But over the vast majority of the people on social media that have heard my message about this have been extremely supportive, and they're kind of cheering me on to be a voice. And I feel like in some ways that was my path. I was supposed to do this. And so I won't stop, regardless of what company is upset about it. And I'm not attacking companies individually.
Right.
I just know that it's a systemic problem amongst them.
I think that the legislatures, state by state, I think this needs to be not only a federal situation, but also need to be a state by state mandated policy that everybody can abide to. Because at the end of the day, we live in a great country. We should not disrespect our elderly by putting them in situations like that where they basically, like you said, almost become a part of the institution, but a different institution, the institution of being humiliated in their golden years where they should be cared for. And I'm glad that you're taking that stand to make that happen. How can the viewers reach out to you and support your cause and watch these videos where you're making people laugh even through your own pain?
I have this little thing called the Chrystal Crash. And what that is I crash nursing homes by surprise. I usually reach out to only one staff member, and they have to be sworn to secrecy. But I travel to the location and I drop off goods for, little gifts for the residents and the staff. If you go to my page, I do have a link on my TikTok page. It's under @Nurse Chrystal, and I have a little link tree there where you can see all the information about the crash. You can order items to be shipped to me so that I can deliver those, but I do thank you cards, I do calendars and books and personal toiletry items and just all kinds of stuff that will make the staff and residents both feel like, hey, we see you. And I have a long list of facilities to get to, and it's going to be terribly expensive. And I'm just one person, but I'm working with a team of people to help me streamline this. And I'm actually working on a crash right now in my local area. So I won't let the cat out of the bag yet. But
okay.
I'm also working with a group called CNAs Only, who recognizes CNAs and their passion for healthcare and the fact that they have been undervalued for decades. These people are providing the primary care to our moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas, and they deserve to be valued. So I partnered with them as well to be able to spread the message.
I am so glad, so deeply touched, and even more deeply touched that you took the time to come on the show and share such a beautiful story of inspiration, motivation, and definitely that beast mindset. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been, like I said, another exciting episode of the Andre The Beast Crayton Show.